Hello and welcome to A Tale Like No Other, a story of fate, sacrifice, and the delicate balance between life and death. This is the legend of Nia Wansa, a girl whose extraordinary gift changed her village forever and came at an unimaginable cost. What would you do if you could see the exact moment of someone's death, even your own parents? For Nia, this gift wasn't a blessing, it was a curse. And when she tried to rewrite destiny, the gods demanded a price far greater than she could ever imagine. Stay tuned to uncover her chilling journey. The hills of Wanza village basked in the warmth of the morning sun. The air smelled of fresh earth and distant wood smoke, while the calls of birds filled the stillness. This was a village steeped in tradition, where elders passed down stories as precious as gold, and the seasons dictated the rhythm of life. It was a peaceful place, untouched by the chaos of the outside world. In this quiet haven lived Nia Wansa, a curious and spirited 14-year-old girl. She was the only child of Mama Muthoni, a sharp-eyed, no-nonsense woman who kept their household running like clockwork, and Baba Otieno, a dreamer whose endless schemes were the stuff of local jokes. Despite his grand ideas that rarely bore fruit, Baba Otieno had an infectious optimism that Nia adored. Mama Muthoni, on the other hand, was the grounding force of the family, a woman of quiet strength and endless practicality. Life in Wanza was predictable, and Nia found comfort in its simplicity. Mornings began with the crow of the rooster, chores like fetching water from the stream or helping Mama prepare breakfast, and afternoons were spent at school. Though she was an average student, Nia had an easy charm that drew people to her, especially her best friend Akeo, with whom she often played by the stream. But everything changed the day she met Mzee Ogola. It was late afternoon, and the sun cast long shadows over the dirt path leading to the village stream. Nia balanced a clay pot on her head, humming a tune she had heard Akeo sing earlier. The cool murmur of water grew louder as she neared the stream, her bare feet crunching softly over the pebbles. That's when she saw him. Mzee Ogola sat on a large rock beneath the ancient Mugumo tree, his staff resting across his knees. The tree's massive roots snaked around him, anchoring him in its shade. His face was lined with age and wisdom, and his eyes, sharp and piercing, seemed to see right through her. Nia Wanza, he called, his voice low and gravelly, like the rustling of dry leaves. It was not a question, but a statement. Startled, she froze. How did this stranger know her name? Baba, do I know you? She asked cautiously, her tone polite. Ogola chuckled, a sound both warm and unsettling. I know much about you, child. Do you know who you are? Confused, Nia tilted her head. I am Nya Wanza, daughter of Muthoni and Otieno. The old man smiled, though there was sadness in his eyes. You are more than that, he said. You carry a gift, one that will change your life and the lives of everyone in this village. Her heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? What gift? Ogola leaned forward, his eyes boring into hers. Sight, he said simply. You will see what others cannot. But beware, child. Such a gift is not a blessing. It is a burden. Nia felt a chill despite the warmth of the afternoon. How do you know this? Ogola looked away, his gaze distant. Because I have seen it before, he murmured. Long ago, another like you walked these paths. Her gift brought pain, not just to her, but to all she loved. Before Nia could ask more, Ogola stood, leaning heavily on his staff. The time will come when you will understand, he said, disappearing into the trees. That night, Nia lay awake on her woven mat, her mind spinning with questions. Who was the other seer Ogola had spoken of? And why did he sound so certain about her gift? She tried to push his words aside as the ramblings of an old man, but they lingered like a shadow in the back of her mind. Life continued as usual in the weeks that followed. Nya kept the encounter to herself, reasoning that it wasn't worth troubling her parents over, but her world began to shift in ways she couldn't ignore. It started subtly, faint flickers in her vision like sunlight glinting off water. She noticed it first while walking to school. Auntie Mora, the cheerful woman who delivered fresh milk to the village children, stood chatting with a teacher. Above her head, Nya saw something shimmer, a faint number, 3. Nya blinked, rubbed her eyes, and looked again. The number was still there, faint but undeniable. Confused, she turned away, dismissing it as her imagination. But 3 days later, Auntie Mara collapsed in the market square and died before help could arrive. Nya froze when she heard the news, her mind racing. Could it be connected to the number? No, it couldn't be. It had to be a coincidence. She tried to convince herself, but the numbers began appearing more frequently. Mama Mbatha, a loud and lively neighbor, had 15 floating above her head. 1 week later, Nia saw 8 hovering over her father's. Everywhere she went, the faint glowing numbers taunted her, and the realization of their meaning settled heavily in her chest. One evening, as she helped her mother wash clothes by the stream, Nya decided to speak up. "Mama," she said hesitantly, "I think something is wrong with me." Mama Mutoni glanced up from the basin. "What is it?" Nya swallowed hard. "I've been seeing numbers above people's heads, and when the numbers are low, they die." Her mother froze, her hands mid-motion. "What kind of nonsense is this? Have you been spending too much time in the sun?" "It's true," Nya insisted. "I saw 3 above Auntie Mara's head, and she died 3 days later. And Papa, I saw 8 above his." Mama Muthoni's face darkened, her expression unreadable. "Enough, Nya," she said sharply. "I don't want to hear such talk again. Do you understand?" Crushed, Nia turned to her father that evening, hoping for a different reaction. She found him sitting under the stars, gazing at the sky. "Papa," she began, sitting beside him, "there's something I need to tell you." When she explained the numbers and their meaning, Baba Otieno listened silently, his face unreadable. "So you're telling me," he said finally, "you can see when someone will die?" "Yes," Nya whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm scared, Papa. I don't know what to do." For a long moment, Baba Otieno said nothing. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. "This is no curse, Nya," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "This is a gift from the gods. Do you know what this means? People will pay to know their fate. This could change everything for us." Nya stared at him, horrified. "But Papa, it's terrifying. People will be afraid." "Afraid or not, they'll come to us," Baba Otieno said firmly. "This is an opportunity, Nya. You must use it." At first, Nya's gift brought only fascination and awe. Word of her abilities spread quickly, and soon villagers lined up outside her family's mud-walled home, clutching coins, goats, and sacks of grain as payment for a glimpse into their futures. Some came seeking reassurance, hoping their numbers would be high. Others arrived trembling, their eyes wide with fear as they braced for bad news. Baba Otieno reveled in their newfound status. "Do you see, Nia? The gods have chosen you to lift us out of our struggles," he said one evening, his voice brimming with pride as they counted the day's earnings. "We will no longer be laughed at in the market. People will respect us now." But Nia couldn't shake the guilt. Every time she revealed a number, she saw the fear and despair it caused. People began living differently after hearing their fates. Some spent all their money, believing they didn't have long to live. Others withdrew entirely, refusing to eat or work, convinced death was inevitable. Even worse, some grew angry when their numbers were low, blaming Nya for the cruel truth of her predictions. The once vibrant village began to change. Crops withered inexplicably, and livestock grew sick and died. The well near the market dried up, forcing people to trek farther for water. The villagers whispered that the gods were angry. Ever since Nia began predicting deaths, nothing has been right, murmured a woman in the market. Nia overheard her as she picked up flour for Mama Muthoni. It's as though the spirits are punishing us. When Nia returned home, the whispers had grown louder. Villagers no longer came to her home with excitement. They came with desperation and suspicion. She could feel their unease in their lingering stares and hushed conversations. One evening, the village elders called a meeting in the square. Torches flickered against the night sky, casting shadows on the anxious faces of the crowd. Bwana Mburu, the eldest of the council, stood in the center. His voice was low and somber as he addressed them. "The gods are displeased," he said, gesturing toward the withered crops and empty water jugs. "The balance of life and death has been disturbed. This girl's gift has angered them." Nya stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching Mama Muthoni's hand. Her heart pounded as she listened to the murmurs around her. "This started when she began seeing those numbers," one man hissed. "She's cursed." "She brought death into our homes," added another. "The gods demand justice." Mama Muthoni stepped forward, her voice firm but trembling. "My daughter is just a girl," she said. "She didn't ask for this gift. You cannot blame her for what's happening." But the crowd was relentless. "If she can see death, maybe she can stop it," someone shouted. "She must answer for what she's done." Terrified by the growing anger of the villagers, Nya fled to the only person she thought might understand, Mzee Ogola, the old man who had first warned her about her gift. She found him sitting under the mugumo tree, his staff resting across his knees as though he had been waiting for her. "Baba Ogola," she said, her voice trembling as she knelt before him. "Please, I need your help." The old man opened his eyes slowly, his expression heavy with sorrow. "Ah, child," he said softly, "I warned you. The gods do not give such gifts lightly." Tears spilled down Nya's cheeks as she spoke. "I didn't want this. I never asked for it. But now the villagers hate me, and the spirits have cursed our land. And," her voice broke, "I saw the numbers above my parents. They are too low. I can't let them die." Ogola's face grew grave. "Child," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder, "the gods gave you this gift to prepare others, not to change what is meant to be." "But they're my parents," Nya cried. "I can't just sit by and watch them die. Please, Baba, tell me how to save them." Ogola sighed deeply, his gaze far away. For a long moment he said nothing. Then finally he spoke. "There is a way," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it will cost you dearly." Nya leaned closer, her heart pounding. "What do you mean?" "To save a life, the gods will take another in its place," Ogola said. "And each time you meddle, you anger them further. You shorten your own life, Nia. If you perform this ritual, you may save your parents, but someone else will die, and the gods may come for you next." Nya's breath caught. She thought of her parents, Mama Muthoni's warm embrace, Baba Otieno's infectious laughter. She thought of the number 4 hovering over her father's head and the 6 over her mother's. Their time was so short. Could she really let them go? "I'll do it," she said at last, her voice firm. "Just tell me what I need to do." Ogola looked at her for a long moment, his eyes filled with sadness. "Very well," he said. "But remember, child, you cannot cheat death without consequences." That night, Nia returned home, her heart heavy with the weight of what she was about to do. She didn't tell her parents her plans, knowing they would never allow it. Instead, she waited until they were asleep and slipped out into the darkness, carrying a small bundle of herbs, ash, and a knife. Everything Mzee Ogola had told her she would need. The mugumo tree loomed ahead, its gnarled branches stretching toward the sky. The air around it felt heavy, almost alive, as though the spirits themselves were watching. Nya swallowed her fear and knelt before the tree, arranging the herbs in a circle as Ogola had instructed. She began to chant softly, the words foreign but instinctive, as though they had been etched into her soul. The wind picked up, swirling the leaves around her. The tree's branches creaked and shadows seemed to shift in the corners of her vision. "Why do you defy us?" A voice boomed, deep and unearthly. Nya froze, her breath hitching. "Please," she whispered, "spare my parents. Take me instead." The voice laughed, its sound echoing through the night. "You offer yourself so freely. Do you understand the weight of your words?" "I do," Nya said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Then so be it," the voice said. The wind died suddenly and the shadows stilled. Nya stared at her reflection in a pool of water at the base of the tree. The numbers above her parents' heads were gone, but above her own, a faint 14 glowed in the darkness. The revolt. Though Nya had succeeded in saving her parents, peace did not return to Wansa. The village continued to suffer. Crops failed at an alarming rate, livestock died mysteriously, and a strange sickness spread among the people. The villagers grew restless, their whispers of discontent rising into accusations. "It's her fault," muttered one man as he repaired his broken fence. "She tampered with the gods." "She should have left things alone," another added. "Now we're all cursed because of her." Even Nia's closest friend, Akeo, began to distance herself. One day, when Nia approached her in the market, Akeo took a step back, her expression wary. "Nia," Akeo said softly, I don't think we should talk anymore." Nia's heart sank. "But Akeo, we've been friends since we were children. You know I didn't ask for this." Akeo's eyes darted nervously toward the other villagers. "I know, but the others, they think you're cursed. And if I stay near you—" Her voice trailed off. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Nia nodded silently, watching as Akeo turned and walked away. The villagers' unease grew into open hostility after a tragedy during the village's annual harvest festival. What was meant to be a celebration turned into chaos when the ceremonial crops, meant to honor the gods, were found rotten and infested with insects. The chief priest, Bwanamburu, declared it a sign of the gods' anger. "This is because of the girl," one woman shouted, pointing at Nia, who stood frozen at the edge of the crowd. "She meddled with death," another villager cried, "and now the gods are punishing all of us." Mama Muthoni stepped forward, shielding Nia with her body. "She is my daughter," she yelled. "She meant no harm." But the villagers were relentless. "She must answer for what she's done," they chanted. The next day, Nia was summoned to the court of Bwana Onyango, the new regent of Wanza. Onyango was known for his paranoia and ruthless hunger for power, and he viewed Nia's gift with a mix of fear and suspicion. Nia stood trembling before him, flanked by armed guards. Onyango leaned forward in his ornate chair, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. "So," he said, his voice cold, "you are the one who sees death." Nia nodded, her throat dry. "Yes, my lord." "And what do you see above my head?" Onyango demanded, gesturing toward himself. The number 5 hovered faintly above him, but Nia hesitated. She knew what would happen if she told him the truth. "I see nothing," she lied, bowing her head. Onyango's eyes narrowed further. "You're hiding something," he said. "If you truly have this gift, you'll prove it to me." He clapped his hands, and 3 prisoners were brought into the court. Their faces were gaunt, their clothes tattered. "Tell me when these men will die," Onyango ordered. Nia's heart pounded as she looked at the first man. The number 2 floated above his head. The second man's number was 15, and the third's was 91. Tears streamed down her face as she reluctantly revealed their fates. 2 days later, when the first prisoner died, exactly as Nya had predicted, Onyango's paranoia turned to fury. "She's a threat," he declared to his court. "She sees too much, more than any mortal should. She is cursed, and her curse has brought ruin to Wanza." The villagers, already consumed by fear, rallied behind his words. "She must be banished," they cried. "The gods will never forgive us while she remains." That night, Nya sat by the fire, her parents beside her. The faint number 7 now hovered above her head, a constant reminder of the price she had paid. She hadn't told them about the ritual or the number she had traded for their safety, but they could see the toll it had taken on her. "Nia," Mama Muthoni said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What have you done? You've been different since that night. Please, my child, tell me the truth." Nya broke down, her tears spilling freely. "I saved you," she sobbed. "The spirits wanted to take you, so I gave them part of my own life instead." Mama Muthoni gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh, Nia, why didn't you tell us? We could have faced it together." "We didn't ask for this sacrifice," Baba Otieno added, his voice thick with guilt. "You're our child. We're supposed to protect you, not the other way around." Nya shook her head. "I couldn't let you die," she said. "I had to do something." As they embraced, a sharp knock came at the door. Baba Otieno opened it to find a group of villagers gathered outside, their faces lit by flickering torches. At their head stood Onyango. "The spirits demand justice," Onyango declared. "Nya must leave Wansa by sunrise or face the god's wrath." At dawn, Nia walked toward the village square, her steps slow and unsteady. The entire village had gathered, their faces filled with a mix of anger and fear. Mama Muthoni and Baba Otieno pleaded with the crowd, but their cries were drowned out by shouts of blame. "This girl has cursed us all," one man yelled. "She brought death to our homes," another shouted. Suddenly, Nia stumbled, clutching her chest. Her legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed in the middle of the square. Gasps rippled through the crowd as her parents rushed to her side. "Nya!" Mama Muthoni cried, cradling her daughter's head. Nya's breaths came in shallow gasps, her vision fading. The number above her head now glowed faintly. 1. "The gods," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're still angry. There is more to come." Her eyes closed, and the square fell silent. Before the villagers could react, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The mugumo tree at the edge of the village split in two with a deafening crack, and a dark, swirling mist poured out, filling the air with an unearthly chill. Shadows moved within the mist, figures with glowing eyes and forms that seemed to shift like smoke. The villagers screamed, scrambling to flee, but the spirits' voices boomed, freezing them in place. "You meddled with what was ours," the voices roared. "The girl's sacrifice is not enough. The balance must be restored." The spirits surged forward, sweeping through the crowd. One by one, villagers collapsed, their numbers extinguished like dying flames. When it was over, a heavy silence blanketed Wanza. The next morning, the surviving villagers found a new mugumo tree growing where Nya had fallen. Its branches stretched high into the sky, its roots thick and unyielding. Mama Muthoni and Baba Otieno planted flowers at its base, their tears watering the earth. They vowed to honor Nia's sacrifice. though the pain of her loss lingered in their hearts. But Wanza was forever changed. The surviving villagers spoke in hushed tones about the spirit's wrath and Nia's gift. Some claimed to see her spirit wandering the hills, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Others avoided the new mugumo tree altogether, fearing that her presence lingered there, watching. Far away, Mzee Ogola sat under the shade of a different mugumo tree, his expression solemn. "The balance is restored," he murmured, "but the gods never forget." Naya's story became a legend, told around fires to warn of the dangers of tampering with fate. Her name was remembered with both reverence and fear, a reminder of the fragile line between life and death, and the cost of defying the gods. Thank you for joining us on this haunting journey through the legend of Nya Wanza, a story of love, sacrifice, and the price of tampering with fate. If this tale moved you, leave a comment, like, and subscribe for more captivating stories. Until next time, remember, some gifts come with a price.